welcome back to Capital Sports 3.0. I am still Alan Moore, and I am delighted and honoured to have a brilliant guest coming up. She is an Olympian, a multiple national champion, and a collaborative designer. And to start off, I'll say welcome, Robyn Stevens, all the way from. The weather looks great where you are.
I'm all over the place, but I'm in Florida right now.
Oh, cannot be better than Florida. Robyn, tell us, what is a collaborative designer?
I pretty much work with everyone so I majored in design and art. And so anyone that's in the productions creatively. So I work with photographers, hairstylists, makeup artists, and mostly when I wasn't thrown in the throes of competing for the Olympics, but I do it on the side when I can.
Okay, now you, as I mentioned, Olympian, multiple national champion. You're a competitive race walker. Now, I hate using the word competitive because race walking is a huge competition. Did you choose it or did it choose you?
It chose me. I started off as a dancer, then a soccer player doing dancing and soccer. I was the outside wing and forward, so I loved running back and forth and halfback. And then as everybody was getting bigger, I was still staying small, so that wasn't a good future investment for me, or at least wise, and high injury risks. So then I think my PE teacher in 7th grade told me to go out for the cross country team. So then running was my primary sport, distance running, and from the mile and up. And then race walk was introduced to me as a way to cross train so that I wouldn't get injured and were less likely to get injured. And also because I had to give up dance. So my youth coach was like, well, it kind of looks like dancing. So you can convince your parents to let you do both. So that's what I did. So it chose me.
It is one of, like, race walking. People always, laugh about it. For example, in Ireland we had, a couple of some very good race walkers, competitive race walkers. One Olympic medal winner, and Rob Heffernan. And the jokes always were that someone asked him, "How were you spotted? How did they make it that you were going to be a very good race walker?" And his retort was that, well, one day I was in school and I needed to go to the bathroom, and I was kind of like holding it in and walking funnily, and the teacher said that. Why? First of all, I know from training with race walkers, the speeds they go at are phenomenal. It's like a normal person running quite hard. Why are there not more, distances involved in race walking, especially in, say, regular events, regular Grand Prix events?
That's a good question, because they should be. When I was introduced to the sport, the way it was presented to me was, you want to go to the Olympics. This is track and field. These are the events in track and field, and race walk is one of them. So my youth coach, Claudia Wildy, taught every athlete she had every single event. And for me, kind of like Rob Heffernan, I think I naturally fell into walking fast because I had the dancing background, but two, I hated being told to walk, not run. But you know how, like, at the pool, you're not allowed to run because you can fall. It could be a hazardous risk, like community pools and stuff. So I remember I used to try to walk as fast as it's like everything that wasn't running, but the fastest one to the front. Or because I'm small, I always wanted to make sure I got the small t-shirts, because I had too many large t-shirts that never fit me out from all the years of soccer and fun runs and all these things. And so I would try to get to the front as fast as I can, but we're not allowed to run, during recess or when you're in line or so I would do that. And then my dad is twice my size, well, not anymore, but when I was little, I was like 4'8". My dad's 5'9". So a whole foot taller. And so when we'd go camping on I love Point Reyes, and it's on the beach it's in California, and we would take these we always were responsible for our own backpack, but I'd have to try to keep up with him so that I could keep talking, because I'm a talker. And so I would just be talking his ear off and trying to pick his brain and learn whatever I could from him. but his steps are twice my steps. So then I'm walking as fast as I can to keep by his side. He was probably trying to lose me to get peace and quiet, but kids. And then just Claudia Wildy had said that a lot of soccer players make good race walkers. And so that's why she thought I would be good at it.
Well, I mean, you just mentioned, yeah, I mean, because, Rob Pepperton, his son is a professional soccer player. So, and Rob himself had played, competitive soccer, competitive sports. In that, so, you've won so much. You've been, 5 times, is 5 times the US champion?
Well, I mean, it depends if you're counting under 20 and open.
Well,
So
yeah, this is
chunk of time off. So as open, probably like I won the 50K twice before it turned into the 35K. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12 times as open. Because I have
12 times open.
yeah, 12 or 13 now. I don't know. That's not like what's important to me. It's the Olympics and health.
It's great that when you've been so successful, you kind of go, I don't know, I've won a lot, and you kind of don't have to count. So that's a great sign. It's a great sign.
It's never been important to me, honestly. Like not even when it was just one. So.
Rob, when the distances changed, was that a disadvantage to you? Would you have do you prefer longer distances than say the 35 or 20?
I think if you're a good athlete, you can handle any distance. That's just my personal opinion. I've always enjoyed from the mile and up as a runner, and I've found that I like it as a race walker as well. So I actually think the longer it is, the easier it is. Just biomechanically, the human, like our genetics are built for us to be able to run really, really fast for a short amount of time, and endurance to outrun those really, really fast animals that can attack us so that we can just keep going and going. So I feel like the 20K and the 30, because 35K is not much different. I like the 35K because you still have to dip into the strategicness of cooling and proper aid. You can still get away with improper aid in the 20K to an extent, still place like top 20, 30 by not doing it correctly. If you can get it nailed, you're going to move up. But I don't know. I like it because race walkers are using all the muscles that all at the simultaneously. So we're using sprinter muscles for the turnover, but the speed endurance of like an 800-meter runner, but then we have the endurance of a marathon runner. So we're using everything. And so for me, the 20K is pretty much like the beauty of a 1,500 meters. And then the 35K is the beauty of a 5K. Even though it sounds like there's huge difference in distances, the way it feels and the way you have to strategize it, to me, reminds me of how I had to strategize an 800 or 1,500 or a 5,000 when I was running more under 20. So
it's an interesting one, like you just see, because like again, when we think of like 35 and 50, when you think of running, you think of a marathon. So you're thinking kind of that longer distance. But of course, as you said, it's a completely different ballgame.
Yeah, I don't really think of it as, it doesn't feel like a distance event until it reaches 50K or like a 40K and up. So 35K still feels like it's middle distance to me.
Okay.
And I don't know. Yeah, like,
no,
I like it all. And the 35K is a little easier for me, just because it requires more of a consistent pace. So I like it for that. But then I like the 20K because it's still a little bit of a challenge to be up in that top 10. I'm not in the top 10 yet. I want to be. Where the 35K, if they would have let me compete this year, I could have been somewhere around top 12. Magala and I trained together, and probably would have helped each other out a lot at Worlds this year. And she took 12th. So like it would have been interesting. Whereas in the 20K, I was number 24, and I'm working, like it takes more concentration. It takes more. I'm working right now with the reason why I'm in Florida before I got engaged was to work with two people who specialize in muscle imbalances and energy leaks. And right now, every single person I've ever seen professionally in my athletic life, from the time I was 12 have all said, I have no idea how you move as fast as you do, Robyn, because you are so tight. And I have no idea how you're this tight for being a dancer for all these years. So it is really embarrassing. And I see it when I'm doing lifting or isometric stuff. I'm kind of off balance. I'm like, oh my gosh, I was a dancer since I was 2. I mean, it's been years, granted. I gave up
And
dancing.
especially soccer player as well, because soccer player, you have to
Soccer
have some
too.
flexibility.
Agility and everything, and I have the agility, but I've been overcompensating. So right now I have really, really strong glutes and quads and lower back, and that's what's doing everything for me. And they're just like, oh my gosh, I don't know how you're even moving as fast as you do. So right now I'm learning how to utilize, like how to fix those and utilize it so that I can,
How to distribute the pressure.
yeah, in a way, and strengthen little, like, I have so many bad habits from the time I was 2 years old, because I was when I was first active soccer and dance, that that like I've been compensating so long that now it's addressing everything that professionals were recognizing, but I didn't have time because I'm like traveling on around, or I didn't have money to afford it, or that regular, because one of my physical therapists in Vacaville in California who works with me, John Sue, he was like, Robyn needs like 8 hours a day of work on her body. So that's my focus right now, is really like accepting that it might slow me down a little bit so that I can go that much faster and finally dip into my potential. And that's what's exciting about the 20K, because the 20K is where I feel like I'm going to see the results if I'm diligent about it.
I'll ask you one question, just because you brought it up, and we mentioned to each other as well on Twitter, for example. You were left off the world side despite being good enough to be there, and should have been there again, especially because, as we all know, distance running, middle distance running, when you have 2 or 3 people, I ran cross country at school in 1,500 meters. When there were 3 of us there, usually they'd send me off as a rabbit. So I'd go off in front and take the people with me, and the guys would come around, and I'd run out of steam after 1,000 meters, but then the specialists would win.
Yeah.
Why did they not select you? It doesn't seem logical. It really doesn't seem logical.
It's really illogical. I'm the only U.S. race walker with the automatic standard in the 35K still for the Budapest Worlds and for Eugene Worlds. And automatic means automatic. I don't know why our federation has a hard time, and other federations have a hard time with that definition too. But it's a issue with our subcommittee, and I'm hoping to resolve that this year. But there's some things I can't really get into, but there's some manipulation of sport going on by competitors, not naming any names, but who sit on the board, whereas I do not sit. I mean, I'm supposed to be on the board. I'm an AAC at-large representative, but I've been left off the meetings. So things are being planned without my input, and then with knowledge of where I'm going to be. But since I'm the target person to beat, there's some conflict of interest going on. so that's why they left me off, is because 3 other athletes were not really close to the rankings, and in order to get selected, they needed to remove one of us. And it was easier to remove the person who was injured earlier in the year by changing the rules 2 months later to have finished the race, so that it could help increase their likelihood for selection. And that's pretty much the dumbed down way of explaining
Yeah,
how it happened.
I mean, okay, we discussed this as well, and I mean, if it was a case, if they're saying, okay, we're going to just bring through younger athletes and we're going to concentrate on this and tell you straight up. I mean, I've had it said to me when I was playing soccer, when I said like that, look, we're not going to start you because we've got a younger guy in your position. He's not experienced, but that was fine. It was
Yeah.
felt humiliating, but it was okay. I understood it eventually, because when I became a coach, I had to do the same.
Right.
Like,
And I understand that, and I've seen that happen. And it happened to my sister. Title IX came out when she was a senior in high school, so she was cut from the varsity senior team because they wanted to start with even though she was a phenomenal soccer player. but they cut her because they wanted a young team. I've seen that happen. That affected the rest of her career as far as athletics go, and college, but college opportunities. And with me, I got it. I got it when I first came back to the sport in 2016. I wasn't able to get grants as easily. I wasn't able to get funding as easily because they're like, well, you're 30. I'm trying to remember how old I was when I came back. I was around 34. And they're like, oh, you're old for, and we want to invest in growth and development. And eventually, I feel like I can be proud of myself for proving that each year I've only invested my best time. So I've improved my time every single year except for pandemic year. It was just slightly slower, but I also beat my competitors by over 4 minutes in the US.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
look, we have that in the bottom of the screen. Is that like, you've been destroying the opposition.
oh, I just saw that quote.
Well, I mean, yeah, but Robin, in saying that, I mean, that kind of pressure, it goes two different ways, and it has very negative effects. First of all, on the mental health of people who are there thinking, no, but I'm doing well, but yeah, well, they won't openly say that it's your age, or if they do say it, that's going to even affect you even worse because you're kind of going, well, I'm still feeling young and I'm doing well and I'm loving what I'm doing, but you're being pushed aside. And the second is
You
that a
know,
lot of,
I don't think that's the reason. I
oh
know
no,
that's not the reason for the world's thing.
oh no, no, no. I mean, no, no. I'm just saying like that. The effects that something like this would have, this pressure come on the athlete like you, it's destructive. And then you see other athletes who are like have to stay at that level and are not as lucky physically, naturally as you, and then they have to try and literally kill themselves to keep competing. But where's the sense in that, Robin?
I understand what you're saying. And I do get that because I almost stepped away from athletics again in 2016 because I got injured and I'm like, well, maybe they're right. I'm old, and keep getting injured. But I feel like I'm living proof that when you figure out how to resolve the energy leaks and work on the strength building, I mean, a lot of times I honestly think it's an old wives' tale when they say once you're 25, if you haven't reached this, you know, you should move on. I think that's old. That's old thinking because usually you go straight from, you start either in junior high, high school, or college. And then that's all you know. And then at 25, you've wrecked your body because you're not properly warming up. Because I've been to college. They don't let you warm up. They don't let you cool down. You're just thrown into things. And then everybody's getting injured. You have people like as amazing as Jordan Hassey, all of a sudden injured all the time when she hits college. Tons of just different athletes who were fine in high school, like Lauren Fleshman, and then college, injuries. I was fine until I hit college, injuries, overweight, so there's all these things. And so then they quit and then they either have start families or they go into the office and they're sitting, they have all these bad habits, but they're doing it at a young age, 25, and 25 under 30. And so they think they're getting old, but really it's these bad habits of being on their phone, on a desk, sitting on hard chairs instead of on an athletic ball, all sorts of things. And I feel like for me, I stepped away for 12 years. So when I came back, I had this momentary thinking of, yeah, maybe they're right. I turned 30. And the day after I turned 30, I started having these aches and pains. I was like, they were right. I literally woke up the next day with aches and pains I didn't think I would ever have. And I'm not recovering as easily. And I used to be able to do boom, 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 hill workout, repeat, hill after repeat, and then jump into something else. And if I didn't stretch one day, it didn't really matter. But it was starting to catch up. And then, yeah, they're saying, oh, you're too old. We want to put money into, yes, they're a lot slower than you, but we want to put money into these younger athletes. And then eventually I started thinking about it and I was like, yeah, but I'm actually as young or younger than them because I haven't been beating up my body for 12 years. And I know how to recoup. Like, I don't have that pride getting in the way. There's that pride where, yeah, all you do know is beating up your body because you're awarded for that. You're awarded for like, oh yeah, like I'm not going to take a rest day. I have been running for 528 straight days, even when I'm sick, I'm going out. And or even if I feel, and that's really unhealthy thinking. And I've gotten past that immaturity. I've gotten past that, like, where it's like, you know what, I'm just here for my health. I'm here for my fitness, and I want to see how fast I can go. And I'm not here for the glory. I'm not here for, if that all happens, that's just a cherry on top. But right, I'm just trying to, because I came back because of a head injury. So I came back because I just want to not prematurely age my body. And so I think I just have a different perspective, because I just feel like, no, this is how you stay young. And your body is only as old as what you train it to be. And you can, well, my body is significantly older than me, and he looks like he's my age because he stays fit. He's stretching, he's doing mobility drills, he's doing all these things that most of us as kids we do naturally. But when we get into college, they get that habit out of us. They don't give us time to stretch. They don't give us time to do those dynamic exercises to keep strong.
It is a thing of where people, we say, like with horses, for example, that they're lightly raced. They don't put them in, like, they don't kill the horses in races. They gradually build it. And the same with we can see with boxers, for example.
Yeah.
They go on for a long time because they haven't got as many rounds under their belt. It's not that they've been knocking people out, it's that they've been well managed. Mm-hmm. You mentioned a few times already that you took time off. Why?
It was a combination of reasons. It was financial. I was under 20, so I had all my success before I was allowed to accept income or prize earnings. So it wasn't even conceivable how a race walker and distance runner, at that time, distance runners were also not making the money they make now, because this is like year 2001. I stepped away in 2003, but 2001 is when I went to college, and I found out way later. I was also I was supposed to be receiving some type of like write-off or check or something for my full scholarship, but I was never getting it. So for me, I just didn't see how I was going to survive in Silicon Valley, because I graduated in Silicon Valley. And they say wherever you go to college, that's where you better be ready to live there. And they're right, because that's where your network is. And I happened to graduate in the most expensive city in the entire US, next to New York. So I just thought, okay, I'm an art major. So I'm an art major who's really good at race walking and distance running. These are all things that don't pay very well for keeping a roof over your head in Silicon Valley. So I had to walk away for that, for financial reasons, because I didn't know what resources were out there for supporting an athlete, which is why I'm glad they've opened up. Like, some people knock on it. They're like, I don't know why they have this master's level, sub-masters for 25-year-olds. I'm like, no, that's actually smart. Because when I left college, you go from having all this support and access to what you need and resources, a gym, a track, everything at our beck and call, a cafeteria, everything. But then now tracks are closed to you because now you're this creepy adult that, is not supposed to be on the track, and you're not supposed to be, or the gym now is like a membership, and you're still paying off college debt. Even if you had full scholarships like me, I was paying off my car, I was paying off, paying for my own health insurance, so there was all these things. And also I was living with my first boyfriend at the time, and we have shared responsibilities for paying rent. So, I'm not going to be living on campus. So the whole walking away was financial. Plus I had an eating disorder that I had acquired while in college. And then I had an Achilles injury because we were no longer allowed to stretch before workouts. So I was not, because of my improper eating, I wasn't fueling my body correctly or hydrating my body correctly. And I was overtraining because I was trying to run off the weight, and not realizing that the puffiness was coming from underfeeding myself, but then overfeed. It's just all this stuff that I didn't have a mentor or an advisor, because I had transferred schools. So no advisor was paired with me. So I was taking 21 to 26 credits per semester, just doing whatever, and not really having a lot of, I didn't have the management there. So I had to learn the hard way how to manage so that I don't kill myself again. So that's pretty much why. And at the time, I felt like what I had started initially doing for my health was now what was killing me, was literally killing me. And when Al Hepner took his own life after the 50K Olympic trials in I'm trying to think what year, 2004, I just realized that, I wasn't any different. I was slowly basically committing suicide with an eating disorder. I was swallowing poison to basically make myself throw up. Um, that wasn't, it's not on a list or anything. Um, but so I just thought, that I'm someone who's really in integrity, and if I'm going to achieve something, I want to do it right. And at that time, I wasn't doing it right because it wasn't fun, and I hated it, and um, it only made me depressed. It was like an abusive relationship. It wasn't healthy anymore. So, and then I just saw a friend who shares the same birthday as me, significantly older than me, but his birthday was April 24th. He had taken me under his wing when I was an under 20-year-old, and he was a really good writer, and I love writing. And so I just identified with emotionally, just empathically, I guess, with him. And I just thought, I got to learn from, I don't want him to die in vain. And I got to learn from this and step away so that I can get healthy and remind myself why I even liked it in the first place, which was for the health reasons. And it's not healthy anymore.
Robyn, it's amazing to say because we've spoken with uh, male athletes will never admit to eating disorders ever. And the relationship with food, the relationship with alcohol, for example, they won't admit it because it's not a male thing to do. I would still say that from 20 years as a boxer, I still have issues.
You were a boxer.
Yeah.
That's
You can
good.
see my one of those. So you can
No, I don't. I didn't. I would never.
okay. I won't turn sideways because it looks worse. But the biggest, I still have problems with food. I still look at myself, and my other half will say, "You're not fat," but I will still feel because I boxed it. 112 pounds,
Mhm.
118, and so I'm thinking, okay, so 20 something years ago, I was this. It's still in my head. Was it sports that put this self, let's just say self-loathing, like that you felt that you needed to be something different? Was it sports that did it, or was it just, I don't know, something else?
It was sports because it was well, not the sport activity itself. It was the bad college coaching. Bad
No, this is,
leadership of
and the reason I
college.
ask, yeah, I didn't want to say coaches because, for example, Jennifer Say has been on us before. She's the former US Olympic gymnastics champion. And again, her and other gymnasts would say about how they were told they were fat, they were told you need to lose weight. I fought with different tennis coaches when I was managing tennis players when they said to a player who was, 5'10" and 125 pounds, and they said, "You need to lose weight." I was like, "Wait, there's nothing on that player. Like they have no weight." But it was this way of controlling. Did coaches do it just because they didn't know better, or was it just to try and break you to make you?
I think that's maybe what the Parkside coach wanted to tell himself he was doing, but no, I think he just didn't know what he was doing because pride gets in the way. And that's the issue, is when that's an issue for anybody. It's the human kryptonite is pride. Because as soon as you start making winning or points or superficial things the target instead of the important things like health and wellness, and those things that actually make us stronger and faster, you end up ruining what could be great. Instead, it's like, I think we've slowly fallen into this mindset of like, oh, the more you beat somebody up, or the more you cut somebody down, they're going to fight back, because we got this whole Rocky mentality. And I don't think it doesn't work that way anymore. And I don't think it ever worked. It's just now there's proof that it doesn't work that way. And I really think pride got in the way, because in track and field, I'm not a fan of NCAA. I don't watch any college sports at all, even when I was younger. I did watch college basketball with my grandma. It's like quality time together. But I don't like it because I think college is the time to focus on your academics and your business skills for after the sports, because we're all going to get too old for sports. and or at least at the athletic level.
Yes.
We can race walk till you're 105 or however old, but fast. And in the Olympics, I guess Garcia has shown that we can get to 52. So until somebody breaks his record, going to the Olympics at 52. But I don't know anybody older, maybe somebody in a different sport, but maybe in cycling or something. But yeah, we're all going to expire in athletics and in our athletics careers. So I feel like school is the time, college is that time, or if you don't go to college, high school is the time to really focus on your business skills, your marketing skills, all those things to help, which is really important for us, especially in track and field. I don't know about boxing. I was just talking to an MMA fighter yesterday, and he's telling me how they actually sound more like us now, where they used to make $100K in a year because they could just slap a sponsor on their shorts, and now they're making maybe like 24,000 because they're not allowed to take personal so there's just I don't know. I lost my train of thought.
No, with that, I mean, it is interesting how, like what you said, because it's a case now where you mentioned NCAA basketball, and many of these basketballers, they get used, as you say, D1, for example, get used all the way, and then they blow their knee out.
Yep.
And they're thrown off their scholarship.
Yeah.
They're gone. And a lot of these guys, like it was Ed O'Bannon, and he saw a kid was playing a video game with his, he was on it, and he got nothing from it. So it was it was a rip-off. And many of these, for example, I always talk about, I love college football. I should say that. So when I see these players who've come through, they've played Pee-wee, then junior high school, college football. By the time they get, and I've interviewed guys, by the time they get to the NFL, I've interviewed two of them. They're finished. Their bodies are destroyed, and they've never been allowed to grow, develop, or learn. And one guy said, he's a very clever guy. He said he was criticized by his coach for going to classes.
Yep. Yeah. I'm working with a high schooler right now. I'm talking to her right now because my fiance's friend, it's her daughter, my fiance's friend's daughter, was telling me about some of the drama she's going through with her high school coach. I mean, this guy does not know what he's doing. I'm like, she's in high school, and he's punishing her for wanting to run with a club team because they weren't practicing her because for some reason, they're saying that she's not driven enough because she goes, like, she has a life outside of school. She's social. But she's also disciplined. She's very disciplined. Her grades are up. And her mom's telling them, like, yeah, so she goes camping sometimes, or she goes water skiing sometimes with their friends, but she's young. That, to me, I think that's really important. And, they're not professionals in high school. That's where they're building their strengths to be a professional later. So they should be doing as much activities as possible. And that's when, if they break a bone or anything like that, that's going to come back stronger. That's when they're going to best recover. So that's the time to explore. And this guy is saying, oh, she's not, I was on the phone listening in, and he's like, oh, she's not driven. I met her, and one conversation with her, I could tell, oh my gosh, this girl has drive. She knows all of her competitors' stats. She's on Let's Run and all these like stuff I wasn't even doing in high school. She knows people who she wants, the journalist she wants to talk to. She's researched what clubs would be best fitting for her so that she can, best navigate like school opportunities. She's trying to get a scholarship. That's why she's doing it. And the guy's like punishing for it, telling her to sit out of practice, that she can't, she's not allowed to. And it's like, no, you should be encouraging her. I know that I was running with a club team in high school. I did, have some conflicts with the high school team. They didn't understand club running, but I mean, I know I did it. I know Sarah Hall, who was Sarah Bay back then, was doing it, because I've known, we were running club since we were 11 or 12. We would see each other at races, or I'd see her races, she'd see me at races. So I don't know. I see it happening all the time. Where it's like, but it doesn't make sense, because pro should be after the education years.
That's it. I mean, it's something that I in Russia, for example, speaking with athletes who were not allowed to run with their school team because they ran with the club. They were attached, for example, to the army sports club or the police sport, like the local village one or town one or regional one, and they weren't allowed to take part in school sports days. And it went all the way from soccer players
Yeah.
to athletes, and the athletes especially, they were under the most pressure because they wanted, they saw other schools, for example, there was no strong athletics up in the region, but they were very well trained. The school took pride in it, and then it fell away. Do you think that there should be more understanding for kids and just let them go and have fun to run?
Yeah.
Why is there so much pressure in this? In Russia, of course, we notice in America and Russia seem to be two countries where the pressure on kids to achieve the first step is insane.
Now it's everywhere. I mean, I'm from Silicon Valley. Kids are committing suicide in high school in Silicon Valley because there's so much pressure on them. Like at Palo Alto High, Los Altos High, like it's really bad. The depression has skyrocketed, and just because and I see it even in sports where everybody in high school, they're wearing bundies and crop tops, and which I think utilitarian wise that's smart, but it's still in my head, whenever I put that on, that was when I was doing a competitive professional race. So that was when I was representing Team USA or doing club sports. But in high school, this is, building phase. So wearing those dorky cotton bottoms and the dorky t-shirt was like, okay, yeah, because I'm in training mode right now. And that reminds me I'm in training mode and not to take everything too seriously. And that when I go to the club practice, that's when I'm on the clock. And as an athlete, when I'm at school, that's when I'm on the clock as a student, as a future professional businesswoman or man, if I'm a man, or whatever. You're
very careful to add up whatever. So
whatever the identity is. So I do think they need to relax. I also, because I've experienced this with, even as an adult, with the World Championship selection, NACAC selection, all of that I'm trying to resolve. And that is, why wouldn't you support an athlete if you go to the experts and you have to put your pride to the side? You're already helping. So, you have trainers at Bally Total Fitness or 24-hour fitness. I don't know what they are in the UK, but you have those, and they're great for just the average person. They're going to learn something from them. But you put one of us in there and we're like, ooh, this trainer doesn't know what he's talking about, or kind of does, but not for me. He's going to get people injured. We'll recognize that, but they're good for somebody else. They're going to learn something from them. So that's how I see high school coaches, and college coaches to an extent. But then you have the professional coaches, the club coaches, the elite coaches, the ones who know what they're doing. They have the Olympians. And those, if there's someone who has access to that and they're willing to do it and commit themselves to it, like this high schooler I'm talking about, encourage it. If she's the one that wants to do it, her parents aren't pushing her to do it. She is pursuing it herself. She's being an entrepreneur. And that was how I was. I mean, people would say, oh, your parents put so much pressure on you. And I'm like, no, they're not putting any pressure on me. They're telling me to have fun. They're telling me to join dance class, soccer, go out and to the beach and join my friends and just have a balanced life. And I'm like, nope, I got to go to bed at this time and I have to eat this. And I have, so structured because I really wanted to go to college and I really wanted to set myself up professionally as an adult so I could show my parents. I'm the youngest, so I wanted to show them that I could take care of myself. And I wanted to show them right out of college.
With that, when you said with like coaches and so on, we've seen it in Europe and in Poland or Spain, or some of the questionable coaches that are there, that they're elite. I always go back to Victor Chegin and how he was churning out results after results after results, and it was always seen as being a miracle. And until now, many people say, no, they were fairly set up. But you can see that top level, there's a group of coaches who can always produce, but they don't seem to do it for the good of the athletes. They do it for their own good or for own.
That's college coaching. And some of the big organizations are
okay. So it's, because it is something that, like, as you mentioned already, that it's these people say, oh, old school, like get in your face, scream at you, shake your shoulders. I agree with you. I don't think that ever worked. I don't think it ever worked. I think it's been more destructive, more turning kids away from sports at the wrong time when they need sports.
Especially with this generation, or like
Yes, yeah, exactly. I mean,
the newer generations are more emotional.
exactly. And it's. Do you think that sports needs to look at, because of course Victor Chegan wasn't alone. There were other people working with. There was people in other countries as well working with them. Do we need to look at sports and say, what are sports about?
Yes, I think we do. And we need to return to sports are about building agility and your body, like learning how to connect your body and mind and get the most out of it. It's supposed to be a healthy, fun experience. It's not supposed to be like the slavery days. I know how it started with the Spartacus and, like some of the Olympic games, it was because of the gladiators and all of that. But we're not living during that time. And now the whole organization of Olympics was supposed to be like peace times where all the countries are coming together and we're celebrating what the mind and body can overcome. And that's not supposed to be manipulated to, like, that defeats the whole purpose of what sports is. You're not trying to jerry rig it. You're not building a robot. You're not, which is, I think, how sports these days are treated. And I think not just these days, like the 2000s, I'm saying like starting in probably the 70s, but wasn't as bad. And it just slowly got worse and worse. I know I'm being really generic here.
No. I think if you point to it, like this kind of arms race really picked up in the 70s, 60s and 70s, where it seems to have been where, there was these two blocks. There was the Eastern Bloc, the Western Bloc, and they wanted to compete to show which system was better. In that, do you think that, that we've lost sight, have we lost sight of what, sports really is for children, especially because for me, it's vital. Okay. It's vital to me.
I don't even suggest, I want my niece and nephew and my godson to be active, but the way I'm seeing sports and the more other professionals that I talk to, boxers, cyclists and any sport, just name it, the more I've talked to them, not just track and field, the more I'm realizing that it's so not what sports is all about. Now it's all about organizations, big companies who aren't even doing the work. So we're basically getting beat up, getting paid nothing for it. And for somebody else who's just sitting on a chair that probably hardly knows anything about the sport. And I'm going to be bold and say that you don't know track and field if you don't know all of the events of track and field. So, a CEO of a sport, if they don't know all the different events or all the different skill sets that you need, so I know nothing about MMA. I don't watch it, but I just met that. So my fiance does watch it, and he introduced me to Uriah yesterday, who's a nice guy. He just retired, and I didn't know who he was, but I just met him. But he's introducing me to the knowledge of. I had no idea that MMA is combining ideas from boxing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, everything, and he was saying that he got disqualified or something, or he lost his last fight because the guy was holding him. But he was like, well, that was a strategy. It wasn't a fight for me. So I'm just like, okay, well, do something else. But the guy thinks that the referee thinks he's winning because he's holding me. And so I'm thinking about it as someone who has no knowledge of MMA whatsoever, experience watching it ever. And so I could be just talking out of my, but the way I heard it is as someone who loves gymnastics and has sat with, I'm very passionate about, I love watching gymnastics. And my ex-boyfriend's sister was a gymnast and a diver. And I had watched the diving match between Stanford and some other school a few years ago. And I thought that the diver looked phenomenal. I saw her go into the thing and she looked beautiful. And Kelsey, my ex's sister, was like, gosh, and I was like, what? She's like, their toe was slightly, and I'm like, how do you even see that? So what it reminded me of is because his complaint was, they have judges who aren't even in the sport. They don't understand what to look for. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Kind of like if we had people who are in race walk that don't know what to look for, like some of the entry level judges, or if there's like a miscommunication and the lost in translation writing, like what happened in Pan Am Games in Lima a few years ago, where a whole bunch of people were disqualified that never gets disqualified. And I was like, okay, what's going on? And it was because there was a misinterpretation in the Spanish translation for something. And so then you just realize, like, oh, okay, that's why we need experts. And that's why we need to go back to not just a spectator thing, but really appreciate it for the athleticism and the art and the skills.
Because it is, I mean, race walking is one of the things where, you have to have one foot on the ground at all times. And if you don't have a correct judge or an experienced judge, especially at the highest level, we've seen it where some walkers, both feet are off the ground on a constant basis and are not getting a warning for it. But yet, other judges will give warnings nonstop, even when both feet are on, or more foot's on the ground. In saying that, this is a kind of slightly off the topic, but also something you just said about like the competition. You mentioned Stanford and diving with the kind of the trans inclusion. Does that ever worry any athletes? Not you. I mean, you're already secure in yourself, but does that worry athletes, female athletes? Because ones what we've spoken with in different countries have said they don't know, and they're also. It's not that they're afraid to speak out. They've not come up against anybody, so they don't know what it's like. So they don't have an opinion because it hasn't impacted on them. Do you think there might be an issue with this in the future in waist walking?
You might get me in trouble.
No, again,
and I do have an experience with one.
Okay.
The 50K, the 2020 50K Olympic trials should have been the first time that the U.S. had a women's 50K Olympic trials. Okay, it wasn't included. So the excuse that they gave us was, well, it's not an Olympic sport, so that's why we're filling the field with men that didn't qualify for the Olympic trial standard for USA. And but we all know that for world championships in London and in London, they added women like a week before Worlds. So the smart thing in my eyes would do, and the respectful thing to do, knowing that they're removing the 50K as an event entirely, is to, and the US Olympic trials is like so sacred to the US that you should include the 9 women who are faster. Like there was only, I think, 4 men that qualified for under the Olympic trial standard. And then they had to pretend they never had an Olympic trial standard. So that they can bring in some men to fill the field, because there was 9 women who could fill the field who were all under the Olympic trials men's standard. But they're like, oh, we can't do that because we don't want women in there because, well, right now it's in vogue to be pro-trans. And we have a guy who identifies as a guy but was born a woman who would like to walk in the Olympic trials, and we can get attention for that. So we're going to have him in it, even though he's only done one 50K, and it was at 6 hours, so godly slow. Yeah, and then at the Olympic trials, he only did 2 laps and then dropped out. So to me, it's like, okay, here he's making a joke of Olympic trials. Now, I'm not disrespecting him as a person. As a person, he's a really nice person. But as an athlete, I feel like he was disrespectful to our sport. And I feel like the AAC representative for us, Dave McGovern, was disrespectful to our sport because he was supposed to be representing us. But for him, he had a conflict of interest because he didn't qualify for the Olympic trials, for the men's Olympic trials. But he wanted to be able to say, he's made the most consecutive Olympic trials. He's qualified for the most consecutive. So if he allowed the women to come in, then he can't say that he's walked in 9 consecutive Olympic trials. And that would make him equal to Ian Watley, who's been in 8. And in theory, both of them have only qualified for 7 Olympic trials. And unlike Dave McGovern, Ian Watley is actually qualified under the standards every time, where Dave McGovern, the last 2 times that he's walked, he didn't qualify by the standards. He had to go by filling the field. Now, his argument would be, well, you can fill the field for the Olympics, so what's the difference here? And I'm like, okay, well, the difference is you had women who could fill the field. And that's where, I think that if he had put on a great performance and he had respected the sport, it would be hard for me to have an opinion on it. But this person did not qualify, didn't even come close to being a qualified athlete to even be at the Olympic trials. Whereas we had 9 women who were very qualified. And it would have been a really respectful and historical thing to finally let us have an Olympic trials, even if we didn't have the Olympics, and also give an opportunity to add us last minute.
Oh, I understand, like, for example, we say with David Gorman, I understand in one way where he's coming from, because if he had prevented the athlete from taking part, he would have been accused of trans bias.
Not really, because it wouldn't have come up. But for him, it was a window for him to be able to compete himself.
So, okay, so he basically just, yeah, I understand what you mean. Because, for example, I've run half marathons. And I remember when we started out, like, so the fast runners at the front, and there were, everyone went away, but there was some very fast, one in Ireland many years ago, there was very, very fast female runners. And I remember then normal club runners passing them by. One of them has since gone on to transition, and she made the decision not to compete in events, like just runs for herself. Like, she loves running, she loves herself, because she feels that she has an unfair advantage over women.
Because she does.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, for the best will in the world, we won't say no, but there is an advantage. But then there needs, and I remember I spoke with her, I said, but so you need to find a way to compete. You need to, and she said, like, she still, even now, her times, she ran a couple of time trials, and she's still, in the men's over 35, she's ranked in the top 10 in Ireland. So there is that kind of huge advantage.
Well, I need to do some more research, but what is it to be a woman? Like, I don't think any man can know what it's like to wake up with severe cramps and bleeding on the day of a very important competition. It's the worst, especially for distance runners, because we're regularly irregular if we even have them. And if we don't have them, we're probably have very low iron, and I know men can get there if they're undernourished. They can get, like, some people we know can be, I know some people have talked about it and been open. I'm not going to, unless they're talking, I don't want to talk for them. But as far as like I'm very irregularly irregular. And so waking up with those severe cramps, like, I know that NACAC in Toronto a few years ago, I woke up with it and I could not feel my legs. Sometimes the cramps are so bad that I would have to crawl. There was times in college where I had to leave class and I barely made it back to my apartment because I couldn't even walk. What guy knows what that feels like? What person who transitions into a female knows what that feels like? Until they know what that feels like, they have an advantage, because they will never have to wake up on a competition day and feel that. They'll never have to wake up for swimming and feel bloated in their swimsuit. I just remember the interview for Rio Olympics. They interviewed that Chinese girl, and she had started her period, and her interview was just so funny because she was so out of it, like, because she was in so much pain, and she's like, it's like, until you know what that's like. And I know this could be, like, kind of faux pas to be talking about, but it shouldn't be, because it's very real that women have to deal with, and we're still learning how to train with it. But exactly. That's where I go back to, where it's like, no, you still have an advantage, because you'll never have that to worry about.
And look, I know where you're coming from, and it's good to speak about it, because then, for example, the person who's transitioning will say, well, this is what the effect that the hormone suppressants have on me, and then we're having a dialogue. It's actually people speaking about what they're going through. And there's two things I remember was coaching it was a Gaelic football team, women's Gaelic football team, and as we're going to get shopping. We're in Ireland for a world competition, and as we're going through, I saw 4 of the players going in to buy tampons, and I was like, oh no, this is going to be hard, because first of all, I knew they were going to be in pain or would be affected. Second of all, I knew that hormonally, and I'm saying this in respect, They're not going to
Don't
be in
worry, you're
the,
not gonna offend me.
yeah, no, I mean, they're not going to be in the best of form. They could be happy, like,
Yeah, you never know. Some women get they actually perform better
yes,
and
yes.
feel more motivated. Others get very lethargic and tired. It just depends.
And I knew one of the girls who I knew very well. We had spoken about before. She'd actually given a lecture on it in the college where I was working, and she said, "Well, the biggest issue is when after the first day, all she wants to do is lie in bed, and she said, oh, lie in bed, cry, and sleep. That's all she wants to do." And it's not. I remember asked her at this round table, "Is it because of pain?" She said, "No, just I just feel like that." And then I saw her go by tampons, thinking, "Oh no, she was one of our main players that we needed." I'm thinking, how could? So it affected me, but a big issue surrounding that is speaking about it. A lot of male coaches are afraid. Nothing related to generation. It's not. It's this fear. One thing is with just in terms of with period pain, and when going through the menstrual cycle, how does that affect a simple thing used to be like pain? And now I just thought about it. It taking painkillers because you could be in trouble. You take a simple painkiller, do a doping test, bang, you failed.
Well, Tylenol is not against.
Yes, it's not on the ban list yet.
So I use Tylenol. Now, when it's really bad, and see, that's the thing is for sometimes, some months, women aren't as heavy, so they're not going to have as bad of a reaction. Other times, like I feel like I have like the Alien, the movie Aliens, like
It's
at
like
least twice a year, and I never know when it's going to attack. But when it does, Tylenol doesn't even help. And that's what happened at the Toronto NACAC. It was like, oh my gosh. And you have to try to stay ahead of it because if you don't, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't take anything stronger because I'm scared to. I was scared to
yeah.
even just take Tylenol. But it's, you're just got to live with it. You kind of just have to just deal with it.
But that's so horrible. I'm
Yeah,
serious.
you
I
can't
mean,
take anything else.
I had a tennis player who came back from playing in the Far East, and she came home and she was seriously ill with a cold. It was just like the change of temperature, like going from 38 degrees to 10. She got a really rotten cold. Gave her like just a flu, well, like kind of like a flu drink, like just basically it's
Oh,
caffeine.
Theraflu, probably.
Terribly, exactly. That's it. That's exactly
We're
it.
not supposed. We're not allowed to have that.
There are some parts of it, like there's also Lemsip as well, the Irish brand or the British brand. Some of them are okay, and so I checked the list and I said that's okay. She drank it and she was fine, and she slept. The testers called to her house, took a sample, and the panic that went through it, that like, oh good God, was there something in it? Did she? It
Yeah.
turned out it was okay, but there was that moment of someone who is, she had temperature, I think it was her temperature was 38, 39. She was really ill, headaches. So we could have given her paracetamol and a coffee, and that would work the same thing, and lots of vitamin C, but it was so it just move off from that. Pardon?
It's part of being an elite. Like, yeah, because like sometimes on menstruation and sometimes with dehydration that can happen to any distance athlete or even boxing if you're not, because you're
Exactly.
you get migraines. Like I get migraines sometimes and you have to, it kind of like, to me, I just think it's like, well, it toughens us up because we can't take anything. If we don't stay ahead of it, we're just going to have to compete with the alien inside us. And like,
Robyn, but why would you be so honorable? Honorable doesn't win gold medals most of the time.
who cares about
In
that?
the Olympics, for example.
If you can't win a gold medal honorably, then you didn't win anyway, even if you're wearing it around your neck and you know it. To me, I actually just took this strengths test. It's called this Clifton Strengths. It's named after this very famous I just learned about him, psychologist named something Clifton. He died in 2003. But I just took this last night because working with a sports psych, wanting me to take it. And one of my strengths totally nailed my perspective on life in general. And it really bothers me if somebody doesn't do it right. Like winning is really important to me, and being the best at whatever I do is important. But if it's not done with integrity, if it's not done right, and if it's not done on a fair like playing field, it doesn't mean anything to me. It doesn't, it's not important. And that applies to even people I watch, so it's like, oh, I'm not impressed by someone if they had to be an ass to someone, to get where they are, or to, be negligent with things that really matter in life, like a person in their life, or family in their life, or taking care of their kids, where they're always gone all the time. It's like, well, then, I mean, I worked for a lot of multimillionaires during the time that I was retired. Some really good people, and then some really, like, where I'm thinking, I'm so glad, like, they're nice, but I'm so glad I'm not their kid. And I do not admire them. They would say, oh, my dream for you, Robyn, is for you to be sitting in this chair someday, just like me. And I'd be like, that's not my dream, because one, that doesn't seem successful to me. That seems like, okay, you got a lot of money and you're driving this overly large car that's using way too much gas that's necessary. And I don't think that's successful. I think that's just a mirage, because you just you don't ever see your kids. You don't even know what their boyfriend's name is that they're going to the school dance to, but I know their name because I'm the one that's answering all the emails. So to me, it's like, I value that my parents, they were at every single thing that we were at. And if one couldn't make it, the other one was there, and they're dividing their time between my sister and I. And that, to me, that's the gold medal. Like, the gold medal are the connections you make, and the memories you make, the things that you explore, how you grow as a person. So I just have a really hard time, because it does get me in trouble sometimes when someone will tell me something, but then I'm like, well, how did you do? Okay, for example, I have nothing personal against some of the members who kept me from competing in the 35K, but professionally I do, because I feel like, okay, if you had to manipulate a situation to keep somebody else out to help you, then did you really qualify? Did you really earn it? And I'm not afraid to say it, because, like, to me, it's like, no, you don't. Or if you had to dope to get that gold medal, or even if top 5 or 10, if you had to dope, did you really earn that?
But
Like, to me, it would
yeah,
mean nothing. And,
and we honest about it. I mean, we both, like, we're both people in the world. We understand this, and everyone watches this will know it as well. The people who dope, it's not that they're lazy. They don't train any less. They don't put in. They don't want it any less. They just decide that they're going to
cut
push.
corners.
Exactly. And they'll recover faster, they will have less pain, they will get stronger. When
To me, it's like, don't you want to achieve something strong? Because to me, if I ever had to do any of that, to me, it's just like, well, I have this little voice in my head said, you're weak. Like, what are you doing? You don't even deserve to be in this sport. Like, that's what I'm thinking. Because it's like, well, you better change what you're doing. And that was how I approached my professional life too. Like, usually if someone said, oh, I thought you wanted to do this with your life, or what do you want to do with your life? I would say, well, I'll find out when I do it, because if I really want to do something, I'll do it. I'll find a way to do it and be good at it the right way. Now, if I can't be good at it the right way, then that tells me, this is probably not the sport for me, or this is probably not the job for me. For example, soccer. Love soccer. I was good at it. I was on competitive teams. But when I step back and evaluate it, and I'm seeing what Mia Hamm looks like, and I'm looking at me, and I'm realizing that I'm getting knocked around more, yes, I could outrun them. And yes, so I could make a lot of goals if I outran them.
when
But
they catch you,
if they catch me, and I could get really seriously injured. And I have a lot of other goals in my life. So I just thought, okay, I need to pick a sport where the injury is not going to impede on some of my other goals. And then also one that, for example, I want to still have knees when I'm in my 40s. My grandpa passed away at 103. My great aunt is turning 103 in December. I hope to live that long as I'm healthy. And I want to be able to walk around. I want to still have these knees and walk around. So, soccer, basketball, football, any of tennis playing, like all of those are like, nope, those are not for me. Even if I was the best in the world, it interferes with some of my other goals. So, therefore, I accept that's not for me. Where I think the people who dope, they just don't want to accept. They get that little pride in there, that kryptonite of pride, and they're like, "Oh, this is what my mom and dad told me I need to do, or this is what I told myself they wanted me to do, or somebody," and they put this expectation on them, and then they get overwhelmed, they get depressed, and then maybe they don't have resources. However, I'm harsh on people who cheat, like, because to me it's like they're wusses, like it's like, come on. If you got to do that, then you're a wuss. You don't deserve in this sport. And I don't know. I just think.
Or wait, Robyn, I had a chance with back with 1999 when I was boxing, and I went down to a training camp in Austria, and everybody lined up. We all had our blood taken to check
Mhm.
for normal blood to see do we have nutrients and iron and so on, because you're boxing, like, you're losing weight, and especially for me, I was delighted with the whole lot. And after everything was done, they checked everybody and it was okay. And the next day, they came in and said, "Okay, we're just going to give you now an immuno booster. It's what they call a prophylactic. It's multivitamins and what you need because you're short on da 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 da." I was okay, and then everyone came in to give you injections. Every boxer, there's around 20, no, I think 19 or 20 of us. I can't remember how many it was, but there was like two teams put together. Everybody walked in to the room, dropped their shorts, and will get injections. I was like, no, no, no. I have like you know, the, I have cod liver oil. I'm kind of hydrated as much as possible. I have these soluble tablets with multivitamins and iron and magnesium and zinc. So no. And the guy who was overseeing it, he was like a really, really nice well, he seemed older gentleman, or he was older, but he was very nice and kind of bald and very smiley and said, "Look, you don't have to do it if you don't want." I said, "Okay, I don't have to do it." I went back into my room. I was basically told out, and I left.
Mhm.
A while later, back in Germany, I spoke with. I actually did an interview when I went back to Ireland, and I said, like, we did this, and I was told it would help me and so on, but I didn't do it. Now I didn't know what was in the needles. I didn't know it. For all intents and purposes, it was simply, kind of an immune booster. That's all.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I then found out, went back to Germany, spoke with a football coach who was in the former East Germany, and he said, I was telling him about it, just sitting having a coffee after lunch, and I told him, and he went, "What did the guy look like?" And I described him as much as I could and how he sounded and what I thought his name was. And he went, "That guy," he said, "that guy is Bernd Pansold." I was like, "No idea." And he said he was the second or third in command in East Germany for doping.
Mhm.
The guy has continued working. He still works with Red Bull in sports.
Yeah, it's another thing, an issue in professional sports, is they make it too easy for the evil to just transfer.
No, hold on. You say evil. I say evil. People say winners. They get the job done.
No, that's not a real winner. See, that's the problem with society is they have been brainwashed to not even know what winning is anymore. They don't even know what automatic means anymore. So I don't know. That's not winning to me. I mean, my favorite U.S. race walker when I was introduced to race walk was Susan Armenta, and she was not the number one race walker. I think she was like 4 or 5. And it was all because of how she conducted herself. And her technique was beautiful. And she just seemed really authentic. And she is. I know she's like a sister to me. And she's a very authentic person. I was not as impressed with the number one race walker just because the technique was not as good. I actually didn't like one of the male walkers. Is not one of my favorite. It was inspiring for me because his technique was so bad and his attitude was just so bad, very arrogant, very just like showy. And to me, I see that as a weakness. So I don't know. I don't care if you're a gold medalist. If it's who you are. Like it's just maybe it's a personal thing, but I don't admire someone just because of how much money they have, how much gold medals they have. Like I actually got no offense to Michael Phelps, he's a phenomenal athlete, but after a while, it's like, what else can you do? Like we already know you can swim. We already know you're an Olympian. You don't have to prove it anymore. Like try to go. Like what else can you do? Okay, you can be a dad. Cool. A lot of us can, except for women, whatever, like I don't know how to be a dad, but it was like one of those where it's just my personal preference. My personal preference is, it's not the bling that makes you a winner. It's your character that makes you a winner. And these things that we do with our life is just the avenue of ways to show who our character is.
You've made a brilliant point. It's like it's the strength of the person who knows they've done everything and they say, I want to do something else and do something even better because they know they can win in one area. They can win on if they concentrate, like you said for yourself. If you want to do it, you will put your mind behind it, your body behind it, and then see what goes up. There's I always come back to one situation or one movie. You probably have seen this movie, City Slickers.
Oh, I've seen it, but so many years ago, I can't remember.
It's an old one. So there's a moment when Billy Crystal and I can't remember the other actor's name. They're on horses and they're going along, and they said, "Would you?" They're talking about like there's two things, really beautiful things that come. One guy said that baseball. Why he loves baseball because when he was a teenage boy, when he had nothing to speak about with his dad because of hormones. Simple, like two males butting heads, normal. They had baseball, so it was a lovely moment. It was a real philosophical moment. And the other one was when they're talking about like beautiful actresses that they really liked, and Billy Crystal said so. And then there was this actress, and his friend said to him, "What if this most beautiful alien came down, like from this Daryl Hannah, whoever it was, came down a spaceship?" Said, "You can come away with me. We'll have sex all night, and I'll bring you back to Earth, and no one will ever know that you cheated on your wife." And they said, "Would you do it?" And he went, "No." I said, "Why wouldn't you do it? No one would ever know." He said, "Yeah, but I would know."
Exactly.
And this for me. It encapsulates.
That's my mentality.
Yeah, it encapsulates why. Like when you say like there was, I don't know how to feel people who dope. I am very angry and resentful of the people who assist the doping, coaches and doctors and so on. They don't care ultimately. They just want to get.
They have the responsibility to protect the athlete, and they're not. And then
even for themselves,
the athletes learning from.
Yeah.
So I do see where there's gray areas where, with some of the Russians when they're little, they don't know any different. Or like when you were in that room. However, it didn't pass the smell test for you. You're like, this doesn't right. I'm not comfortable, so I'm leaving. That to me is someone who has wisdom and is paying attention, is in the present moment. Everybody needs to take personal accountability. So it's too easy to blame others. But even as a kid, I was able to say, no, not my parents' fault. It's me. I'm putting the pressure on me. I'm taking personal accountability. I'm not blaming my parents or taking the opportunity to let people think it's my parents. Because there were times where I remember this time I came into my 6th period class and I had no idea about a big project that was due because I was at a race when he assigned it earlier in the year. And now is the end of the year and everybody's presenting and I have nothing and I had no idea. And so I approached him at the end and was so stressed that I had arrived to school wearing one slipper and one regular shoe. And I'm one of those people who don't care what people think. I mean, I'm a race walker. I obviously don't care what people think. And I'm also an artist, and artists don't care what people think. But I didn't have time to go home to change, so I just went through the whole day like that and kind of forgot that I had 2 different shoes on. And I'm talking to him, and I'm like, okay, I've been competing, and I had no idea, but I'm a really good athlete. This is my junior year, or good student. This is my junior year. It's so important. All the colleges are looking. Can you give me a week? I'll get it done. I know it's been a whole year thing, but I'll get it done. And he's like, Robyn? I'm like, yeah. And he looks down at my shoes and points, and I'm like, I know. And I'm just in tears. Clearly, I am under a lot of stress, and anybody could blame my parents. But I took personal accountability and like, no, it's me. I'm responsible for this mess. And I think that should be everyone. I mean, even though, yes, it's the coach's job, it's a team thing, and you need to take accountability for yourself as well. If you're going to do the sport at a professional level, you need to have some critical, and then parents too, teaching that if you're a really young kid. But yeah, I get that there's going to be times where accidents happen. That's an accident. But EPO, that's not an accident. A person has to go out of their way to get it, store it, put it in themselves, And so to me, same with steroids, like or whatever like the football players are taking, like they have to,
HGH.
yeah, they have to store it a certain way. And, so to me, I don't think that Stevens Act should apply to them, because it's like, no, that's unfair play. They consciously chose to cheat. Whereas, yeah, if somebody has too much, what's that, poppy seed, and it comes with an off score, then maybe, I don't know. That's for the experts. That's not my area. I just do the sport. But yeah, you got to take personal accountability too. You can't just blame others. You were able to do it. If you can do it, like, that's how I think. It's like, well, if I can do it, why can't anybody else do it? It's like, I'm not some like superhuman. We're all human.
That's it. I know the guys who were there. It was very, very quickly obvious to me that night in Austria when I refused. Suddenly, all the faces turned away from me, and I felt that they knew what they were doing. They knew there was something not quite right, and yet only one guy, Ruslan, a Ukrainian guy, ran after me and said, "Please, please, please, don't leave. We'll fix it up. We'll fix it up." I said, "No."
Admitting guilt.
Yeah, and
nobody runs after if they know they're doing something right.
yeah, exactly. So, Robyn, on that, I'd love if you have time to come on to a live show with us. Would love to have you on.
I'm a very open book and very candid. So
no,
you might regret it.
Yeah, we're being cancelled. But no, we've spoken with so much, and it's been an absolute pleasure with you as well. We've run your website, yeah, so that people can look more. That's so, Rob. Look, the very, very best luck, and just you're an inspirational figure. Like my friend in Germany told me that she's a heroine, and the right kind of heroine as well, because there's two kinds of heroin. Heroin with an E. So
thank you,
Rob Stevens. Thank you very, very much for your time, and the very, very best luck, and hopefully speak with you again in the very near future.
Well, I very much enjoyed talking with you, Alan. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thanks.